Witches. So welcome to September and Virgo season, which is the best one, but like whatever. This month, I was talking about yesterday, I really want to extend my platform to all of my followers. So this entire month is going to be topics that are picked by you guys. So for today's video, I got a suggestion from a beautiful Instagram follower, Tate Wolverson. So if you want to follow their all of their social media, I have linked everything below. They have like a TikTok and an Instagram and stuff, so definitely go check it out. But anyways, they are moving to a different location than they are currently, so I think it seems like they're moving to like a pretty big city, which is cool. And they asked me to talk about like how one can adapt their craft to accommodate different situations. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a great topic. It's not something I've ever thought about because it's just something that I like had to do with very little guidance. So I wanted to get into that today and maybe share some of my advice or like what I did. Now I know everyone's experience is different, so I would like to hear from you guys like how that worked for you. Or any tips and stuff, definitely leave them in the comments. I will be like reading them and just being like, I'm always inspired by you guys. It's awesome. So thank you guys so much for interacting. But basically, my craft has varied a lot in my lifetime. It started, I mean, it's almost been 11 years now, which is really crazy. So I was like 13 years old, meaning I had no money or power. And I lived in suburbia, but by suburbia, like there was like, I was like on the outskirts of suburbia, if that makes sense. So basically like my parents' house was like, from the front, it looked like a neighborhood, but if you walked back out into our backyard, it like bordered like a mile of like protected woodlands and wetlands. So there were like hiking trails and stuff. You just couldn't like build on it, if that makes sense. And you really wouldn't want to. It was basically a swamp. So yes, that's very much like my energy, I guess, just the swamp witch. So in that time, I had a lot of access to stuff that I don't have access to right now, which is like land and nature and trees, just like in my backyard. And I took it for granted for so long, and I'm so sad about it. But, you know, it's something that I look forward to having again when I have a house and all of that. So I'm really lucky. My mom was really into gardening, and I had so much more like herbal magic in my craft when I first started, I feel like, because she just had a garden and she didn't really like know or care what I was doing, it seems like. You know, but I would go out there to go harvest mint on a full moon, and she'd be like, oh, you're just gardening. And I'd be like, yeah. One of the first pictures I have actually that I even talk about witchcraft is still on my Instagram if you scroll all the way back. And it is like a bunch of piles of different like plants. So she grew, I'm trying to remember, it was definitely mint. I know we had a lot of that because it was really invasive and took over everything. We had catnip, a lot of that, so I harvested a lot of that. And I think the last one was fennel, because I remember like the fronds and stuff, and I really liked that. I can't remember if it was fennel or dill. It was one of them. But if you know what I'm talking about, you know, it's like really soft and nice and like nice to touch. And it smells so good, oh my gosh. Like some of my best memories with my mom, not that she's passed on or anything, just like from being a kid, were just us gardening together, and it was really nice, and I definitely miss that aspect. She is moving up to the mountains soon, and she's gonna have like this beautiful garden, and I'm very excited. I'm gonna go visit her all the time, and she already has told me, she's like, yeah, you can just like have whatever you want out of my garden, I don't care. And I'm like, yes. Like, I feel like that's what like witchy moms are for, even if they don't know they're witchy, right? It's just like, yeah, you can have like some like sage. What are you talking about? I'm like, nothing, don't worry about it. Like, it's cool. I'm making a chicken, yeah. But yeah, I think that I grew up, you know, in suburbia where like witchcraft wasn't really talked about. So I was like already weird. And though people tell me that I was not as weird as I thought I was, but I was very convinced that I was like this unique, like, which is annoying and egotistical, but whatever. I just felt really weird and out of place. Maybe that's just being 14, I have no idea. But I definitely had a lot more connection with nature, and I had a lot more like visceral, like real experiences, connecting with my deities, connecting with the earth. So that is definitely something that I miss, and I think that I desperately need in my craft again soon. So hoping to do that soon. But that was really good for me because it did establish that foundation and that foundational connection between me and the earth. So that I think is a really good basis for my practice, and I'm really glad I had that growing up. Now, when I moved out of my parents' house, I went to college. I was like 17, and then I finally like officially moved out of my parents' house when I was like 20, and just was like goodbye. Like it was a whole thing. So I've been on my own since then. But basically, I moved out. And I was in a dorm for a while, so I couldn't really have too much stuff. Now, I did have like a bunch of bones that I brought with me, which was like really creepy. I don't know why I did it. As well as I had this really cool, I bought this like paper mache, like deer head looking thing at Michael's, and I decorated it and stuff. And like my roommate, my former roommate texted me, and she was like, oh my gosh, so that's what all the skulls and stuff were about. You're just a witch. Now I get it. And I just thought that was really funny because I didn't really talk about it. I thought it was weird and I didn't want people to like judge me for it. So I kind of just was like too anxious to like actually like reach out and like make witchy friends, which now as I'm like outside of the environment, I'm like, why would I do that? I could have been the cool witch on campus. I have a feeling I was, because it was a small campus, but like whatever. And anyways, I didn't really practice a whole lot in college, if I'm honest with you. You know, like I brought my tarot cards with me. I did have like a couple like religious items, but I didn't have an altar or anything. All of that stayed at home, which I was always so nervous about. I brought my witchcraft books with me for sure, but I really didn't, you know, I was doing a lot of deity work at first, and then in college I wasn't really, like I would always see stuff or like be drawn to like Cernunnos. I did an entire project about him, actually, about Herne the Hunter, and made this really cool garment that like venerated him basically, which is like awesome, and it got to walk the runway and it was like super great. So definitely it was always there in the background, I would say, in college. I think in college it was a very formative time for me where I was discovering a lot, and I was also going through, that's like where the peak of my trauma was. So I was escaping a narcissistic abuser. I was trying to figure out what the hell was happening. I was just kind of coming into my own. I was a terrible person back then, and I regret a lot of stuff. But you know, I think that chaotic time, the Morrigan had really set me up to endure it, and Herne was there to be my comfort during it. So that was really just a beautiful way. My former practice kind of melded into my new one. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but needless to say, I didn't like formally practice a lot when I was actually in college. When I say like your practice can wax and wane, I don't necessarily even mean over like a period of days. I'm talking about like a 4-year span of my life where I wasn't like practicing every day, and I wasn't doing deity work, and I wasn't really doing like I would do like a couple little like casual spells, like energy in my coffee, or mixing up tonics that would help me get through like midterms and stuff without getting a migraine, and anything like that. So that's kind of like where I turned to more practical magic and art magic, I would say, like using art to explore my spirituality. But I wasn't like, I didn't have an altar, and I wasn't like lighting candles and shit, you know what I mean? So I did do a spell to ease a breakup between a boyfriend and I did, oh my gosh, that's like a weird buried memory. Sorry. Two people that I knew in college were like very convinced that their dorm was haunted. So I like smoke cleansed their room, and like you know, blessed their dorm, and I left them some like blessed medals to place around the place. So that was like a weird buried memory, but that did actually happen. I did do some witchcraft, so very cool stuff, but like not like, you know, this, like not what I'm doing today. Now, I graduated college and I got my first job where I still am at, and I moved into this apartment, which is like my favorite place in the world. It's like my little safe haven, and I just really love it, and I'm really proud of myself because like I have like really made this my home, and you know, I work hard enough that I can afford to live basically on my own. I mean, I live with my boyfriend, but before that, like, I was just, like, financially just, like, killing it, and then the pandemic happened, but, like, you know, I'm really grateful that I can afford this place, and that I can kind of create this life for myself. Like, it's one of the most freeing things that I've ever been a part of or, like, witnessed, so I'm just, like, really happy. And I think that shows in my space. Like, I've become very comfortable here. In fact, like, the thought of moving out of this apartment just scares me, because this is the longest period of stability I've had since I was maybe 12 years old. So I'm just like, no, this place is great. And I do plan on living here for a decent amount longer, until I can buy a house of my own, and then just all hell's gonna break loose. It's gonna be like a haunted mansion, and you guys are all invited. But I think that now that I have my freedom to do so. Oh, also, like, when I was, let me backtrack. In college, I was definitely in kind of like a suburban area, but I didn't have that access to nature that I did. So I think that's why my practical, like the practical side of my craft came out. We also didn't have any, like, I didn't have any metaphysical stores near me, so like I couldn't easily get supplies without like traveling really far, like traveling up like to like 3 towns over, or going back home to like my metaphysical store. But it was really just like a health store that sold incense and stuff. So yeah. Very tough to live where I lived and be a witch, because it was full of normal people, and I am not a normal human being, I don't think. So now that I live in a very historic part of my tiny little town, and I really love it here. I like the energy of it. There's another town that is a little bit more historic, like 1700s-y historic, which is really cool. And I can hop over there and visit one of my friends on the way. Actually, she like lives halfway between those two, like where I live and then that town. And it's nice. Like, there are witch stores there. There's like a psychic there. There's like ghost hunting stuff. It's really, really cool. There's a really big cemetery. I'm trying not to give away where I live, but I think you guys might probably, if you know who I am or like have figured it out, like, please don't kill me. Like, nah. I just really enjoy this like kind of historical energy that I have like surrounding me. When I was like 10 years old, I really liked the historic downtown, like in my hometown, and always wanted to live there. So now that I'm actually living in a historic downtown, it's like really awesome. But yeah, so I think my craft has now turned more towards like the hearth and home. And I consider myself a hearth witch. Like, a lot of my craft takes place in here, less outside, more here. And it's all about like community building and community like activities and stuff. Like, I feel like that's kind of where my craft is going. So I do have less nature around me. I feel like I'm getting less I'm getting further and further away from nature, which kind of sucks. So I can really relate to the struggle of moving to a big city. This is by no means a big city. Again, it's a very small town. And I am able to drive like 10 minutes and get to a national, like, not a national park, a like state park, which is cool, but like also I'm lazy, so I like don't do it as much as I should. But I do enjoy that aspect of it. Now, if you are moving to a bigger city, you might not be able to get to, you know, like a forest, but maybe there are like green spaces around you, like parks. I mean, Central Park is in New York City, so like, I don't know quite what other people like cities are made up of, but you know, learning about, if you can't get to a green space, maybe like plan a vacation if you can. I know travel is hard right now. Or, you know, take a day trip if you can. And again, that's assuming a lot, so I'm sorry if I am being insensitive. But if that is not possible, maybe looking into the history of the place that you are moving to, or like, you know, connecting with the energy of the city itself. There is a whole concept of like urban witchcraft. And if you think about it, deep below everything, we are all on the earth. So no matter what, no matter how many like layers of concrete you have to go down to, below it all is the planet. So you are never far away from the earth, which is so beautiful and something that I really value in my craft. Hope that people who do live in the city aren't turned away from witchcraft thinking that they have to be this like, you know, barefooted granola eating hippie basically to practice witchcraft. Like, no, you can bring in aspects of the planet. So if you find like a cool leaf, or if you are really into crystals, that's a great way to bring that into your practice and into your house. But yeah, so I've definitely found that like by living in an apartment, I have like a lot of house plants, and I am pointing over there because that's where all my plants are. And then we also have some window boxes and stuff, but a lot of my craft is now geared towards like the home and creating a beautiful space here. My craft has definitely gone from like this kind of unbridled, wild, like, you know, witch of the woods like swamp witch vibe to the more practical like magician, you know, vibe, to now this kind of like mothery like homemaker vibe. Like, I don't know, I think that's just kind of like my transition through life as well, if I'm being completely honest. So, you know, maybe that's just like life mirroring, or my craft mirroring my life. I don't really know, but that's how my craft has kind of expanded. And I think that by being resourceful and creative and working with what you have, your craft will be completely fine. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of different methods like travel altars that you could look into if that's something that you're interested in, or maybe just like scaling down your craft like a little bit for the time being until you can kind of get settled and figure out what you can do, and that's completely valid. So I do want to make that like abundantly clear that you do not have to have like fancy altars and like all of this crazy stuff. You can have a shoebox with a bunch of rocks and a feather in it. Like, it's fine. You're doing great, and I am proud of you. So please rest easy, you guys, especially witches that are like currently in college or are getting ready to go to college, or maybe aren't even there yet. Like, if you're in high school or something and you're watching this and you're like, I can't practice because my parents will find out. Please stay safe. Please don't like upset them like unnecessarily. I know it's fun to mess with them, but like, trust me, it did not work out for me. So please don't do that. Because you are going to find yourself in a much different place in 10 years. I know it seems like a long time away, but if I could look at my like 13-year-old self and just be like, why are you doing this? I would. So anyways, I would love to open up the floor to all of you guys. Feel free to like share how your practice has changed. And I think it'll be a fun way to like learn from each other, because like maybe there's like a technique that I haven't thought of that somebody else has. So I hope you guys, if you have anything special that like particularly pertains to the part of the world you're in, or, you know, like your town, or like the dwelling situation that you have, like dorm or apartment or house or like whatever, I would love to hear it, and I hope to see some stuff in the comments. So I will see you guys later. Bye.